It's Zarek from Real Chiropractic Dynamics. What you're about to download to your brain is a very detailed synopsis of the classic book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, from a chiropractic perspective. What I think is really cool about this is you've got two different perspectives. You've got myself reading it for the first time, completely fresh, and you've got Pat McMahon, who's read this book many times, applied it to his personal life, to his practices, to building the Syntropy seminars, and he's giving me advice as we go along through the book. It's a classic book. I'm really proud of what we've created here. I think you're really going to enjoy it if you dedicate the time to it. What I would advise you to do is read 3 chapters at a time. The book's not long. It's not a big book at all. It's going to take you about 15 minutes to read each 3 chapters. Read it, make your own notes, draw your own conclusions, and then watch an episode, listen to what we have to say, and just let it sit for a while. Let it wash over you. And the great thing about this book is you can just keep coming back and back to it, and you'll always pick up something a little bit different. So you do the best you can with what you have. This was a program, it was an idea that we had during the lockdown, during coronavirus. And I'm really proud with how it turned out. And I think if you dedicate the time to it, you're going to pick up a lot of stuff. You're going to pick up the teachings of the book. And also there's a lot of advice that Patrick gives during the next couple of episodes that you're going to embark on. And it's going to enhance your life. It's going to enhance your practice. It's going to just make you a better chiropractor all around from studying a classic. So I really hope you enjoy it. Feel free to reach out to me if there's anything you want to discuss. Reach out to me on Facebook, reach out to me on Instagram, and I'd love to chat about it with you. And yeah, here you go, guys. It's The Science of Getting Rich from Pat McMahon and me, Zarek Bartley. Enjoy. All right, sir, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna review chapters 1 to 3 today. I read it today fresh. I haven't read ahead or anything. I just read chapters 1 to 3 a couple of times just to get the basics. I like how at the start he does the kind of the disclaimer and basically saying like you don't have to completely understand how all this works. You just have to trust that it is a process and this is how it works. And it reminded me of Sisyphus would use this example a lot. He says it's like taking care of a garden. If you plant the seeds, we don't know exactly what goes on between you having the seeds and you yielding a crop, but you trust that that's what's going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I mean, it does require, I guess, a little faith in the beginning to just kind of trust that the process will work. I know it's different to a lot of our belief systems, but yeah, it really is. As you get further into the book, you realize there is an actual science to it. And that's chapter 2. We'll chat about that a bit today, but this thing works, and it's, yeah, we'll go into it in depth, but when you put this stuff into play, it's amazing. First of all, I really want to just thank you for taking the time to put this together. I've never actually done this before, so I don't really have any background in teaching the material. But it's a book that I've read probably somewhere close to around 100 times. I read it and reread it. I always go back to it whenever I'm starting a new project to get as much clarity as I can. And it's really helped me to manifest a lot of different things in my life. And the title is about, the science of getting rich, but it's really the science of abundance and the science of manifesting and creating the life that you want. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, and I really appreciate you putting this together.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking recently, like with this whole Corona shenanigan nonsense thing that's been going on, I'm like, okay, well, what is it actually that I want to get from this? And I think I would be more susceptible because I've got this intensity and I like to dive into things where my goal would just be, okay, I'm going to see this many people. You'll see people that are like, oh, I just want to make this amount of money. But this has got me thinking like, well, what else is the objective of life? Just to see people, or is it to have an abundant life? And yes, to have an abundant life, a vehicle to do that having money, but what else would you want? What kind of abundant relationships do you want to have? The freedom to be able to do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think everybody needs to figure out what their values are. We have some interesting beliefs around money. DeMartini, he's like the best at that, to figure out like, what are your real values? And, money never really came up very high for me. It's always been relatively low. And I had some belief systems around money that I've changed, and things have become a lot more abundant. But we were doing this, Aaron and I, and Boyce as well. We were at this master life planning, and you're going through this notebook, and you think you're going to listen to John DeMartini talk, but you're working through a notebook by yourself, and he's sitting in the room to answer questions. And like, you're going through this for a couple hours, and you're like, when's he going to talk? You realize this is the seminar. You're actually just filling out this workbook. And he works you through all these questions, and you're starting to come to things, and you're all these reasons and all the things you want to manifest and what you want to create in your life. And then about a day into the process, like, me and Boyce and Aaron, we all realized, like, I'm full of shit. This is all the stuff that I say that I want, but it's not actually what I want. And I remember me and Aaron specifically, what we wanted was freedom. Okay. And that actually became the highest value, is like to be my own person, to create my own life, and to be free. And it became really clear that money is a vehicle for that. And so I kind of changed my thoughts around money towards, I call them freedom tokens, and my wife, for her, it's very important, security, and it creates freedom and security. So attaching it to values that are actually your real values really help in this process. And that's kind of the first chapter. It's about the right to be rich and why it's important for us to be rich. It's important for us to be abundant. And I know when I first read it, I had real challenges I thought, I don't need to be rich, like it was, I had some idea that it was maybe a negative, to accumulate all this wealth. But again, DeMartini talks a lot about like how money came into being, and capital. It's the head of cattle. And when we were herders and hunter-gatherers, when we first started having like herds of cattle and sheep, that you couldn't trade an entire cow, and it was about creating service and specialization. So it's about actually how we need some means of exchange so that I can serve your needs and you can serve my needs, and that we exchange. And by doing that specialization, it increases the evolution and the complexity of the universe. And that it's very important for that capital to flow. And it's, for me, I mean, money's energy. That's it. It's a storage form of service, really.
Right. Or it's like, you want to have an abundant life, but that doesn't just mean having money. So it's almost as if money is the car that gets you to the destination, but you don't buy a car just to put fuel in it. That defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
The car is to get somewhere, and money is to help you get somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just paper and coins and stuff like that really has no inherent value, or it's just what it can do for you. It's a vehicle, exactly as you said.
I think that's something that you and Aaron have done beautifully, is your practice. I haven't been to your practice, but I've been to Aaron's a couple of times, but I know the gist, and you do seem to have a lot of that freedom. Everything's automated. You kind of you're not slaving in there all hours of the day, and it's you've got that freedom, although it's still profitable. Whereas you see sometimes people where the whole objective of the practice is just to make money, and then to me it seems a bit more, it's not as organic.
Yeah. And I mean, my goal isn't to make those people wrong. I mean, I've been there in my life as well, where things are about making money, but now and then I've also been there where I had blocks around making money, even though that I was giving a lot of service. But it's just exchange. And it's really about being in service to people. And when you're in service and there's fair exchange, then, money is a natural byproduct of that. As we get further into the book, he will talk a lot about that, that it's not about being competitive. It's about being creative. We'll get into it later, but it's basically, it's about being of service, and money is just an energy exchange for that service.
Yeah. There's a bit in chapter 2. I have a quote here. Getting rich is not the result of saving or thrift. Many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich, which is contradictory to what I was raised with, what I was taught as a child, because what I was taught from, an Irish upbringing was the only way to have a lot of money is you save all your money, and you have to be really, really, we call it tight. You have to be tight, and you basically don't spend money. Don't invest, because investing is risky, and you just have to work for someone else, and that's how you get rich.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with the Irish family as well, and even add the Southern U.S. Bible Belt on top of that, and it's some pretty interesting ideas around money and wealth and avarice and greed and things like that. So yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah. And something that surprised me as well, whenever you recommended this book, you didn't tell me it's actually a chiropractic book. Whenever you think about it, like the bit in chapter, the quote from D.D. Palmer, where he's talking about one person and his associate, they eat at the same table, they're working in the same place, they're working at the same bench. Why is one getting sick and one's getting well? And then you read this book, and he's saying, like, when two people are in the same business, they're in the same neighborhood, one gets rich and the other fails. That means that one is doing something that the other isn't, so.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about innate intelligence. He's talking about universal intelligence. So I was surprised, and I chuckled a couple of times as I was going through the first 3 chapters.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was a very interesting historical time around the turn of I guess it would have been the 19th century, going into the 20th century in the U.S. It was post not World War II. Geez, it was post the American Civil War. And there were I think there were millions dead, and families had lost so many people. And there was a big return into spiritualism,
right,
and theosophy. And basically the American New Thought movement was kind of created. And Wattles is one of the big ones. Ernest Holmes from Science of Mind, D.D. Palmer, Spensky. But they were like a rebirth of Hermetic principles, as above, so below. And basically it was a codification of how to use those Hermetic principles for creation. Because this is something I think is really cool, because their concept was that, we're created in the image of God, in that we're creators, and that everything that is creative is an expression of that universal intelligence. And it's that small part of it that's within us that allows us to be creators, in the biological sense of creating tissue, but also of creating things in the real world, in the material world. And in the Hermetic principles, they talk about there's the one mind and the one thing. And that's where the as above, so below. And the one mind is the mental lattice work that's permeates the entire universe. There's nowhere that is not. And it brings the one thing into existence, and it forms the one thing, which is the material world. And, we think about second law of thermodynamics and entropy, and the reason Aaron and I named our program Syntropy, because it's about that universal expression. It's that which organizes and creates, and where we put our focus. So yeah, it's really, really cool, the parallels with chiropractic. We're going to get into some good stuff as we go on through this. I don't want to give it all away in the beginning, but yeah, it is very, very congruent with chiropractic principles as well.
Yeah, well, as I said, like, this is just the first 3 chapters. Now, I didn't want to read ahead because I just wanted to focus on that and not spoil it for myself. But yeah, we're off to a good start, because even just this part of the book, I think it's just laying the foundation. It's just it's more of a broad, and then I'm assuming it's going to get narrow and give you the actual how-to. This is more the why. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
The last chapter, I won't give anything away, but the last chapter is the summary of the science of getting rich. And so he takes each chapter, and it's the essence. And, I like to reread that all the time,
right,
the summary. So he definitely will bring it into real, actionable, practical steps.
Awesome. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then what I was thinking as I was going through the first 3 chapters was, if you could try and relate that back to chiropractic, like whenever you look at most average chiropractors, like if you look at a 50, 60th percentile chiropractor out there in the world, we're going to the same schools, we're kind of going through the same program, we're using, okay, there's lots of different techniques, but they're all kind of similar. We're using similar benches. We're all pretty much, for the average chiropractor, it's pretty standard. But in that group, in that subset, you have some that are thriving, and maybe it's just your run-of-the-mill flying seven, and he's thriving, whether it's financially or seeing the amount of patients you want to see. And then you've other people that are struggling to eat, and that can be related back to, I think, these principles. They know kind of the same stuff. They're probably doing similar techniques. Why is one different to the other,
Yeah. Wow, that's a deep topic. We can go on quite a bit on that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the beliefs, the values, and what people expect. And I want to, at some point, and this is not actually in the book, but discuss a lot of concept therapy and Thurman Fleet's work, because it's very compatible with this, and it's compatible with the Hermetic principles that it comes from. And it really talks about the subconscious, and how we get these, before you're 7 years old, you're basically just subconscious. You're a sponge, and you're just taking in other people's values, other people's beliefs, mother, father, teacher, preacher, and then the culture at large. So you grew up in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and now, having lived in Barcelona for a while, you've become aware of what is culture. And you can't see your culture from the inside. You can only see it from the outside.
Right.
It's like, ask a fish, what's water, or a bird, what's air? They have no idea. They have no reference, right? Because they're never out of it. And culture is kind of the same thing. I've lived in 6 different countries now, and you'll go through, I'm sure you've gone through this phase. At first, you'll be just total honeymoon phase. Everything's awesome in the new culture. It's the best. Everything's great. And then there's a point where everything sucks. I hate everything about this, and home is great. And then you come full circle, and you start to realize, wow, well, there's really good things at home, and there's some shit things, and there's some really good things here, and there's some things I don't like. And you start to realize culture is just a filter, right? And it gives you a lot more choice, having done that and having lived out of your own culture, because you get to ask the question from a conscious perspective. What do I believe?
Right.
And it's very helpful to do that in every aspect of our life, but around money as well, and just, I don't even know why I went off on that tangent, but the point is basically, we take on all these other beliefs and all these other ideas from our environment. But at some point, as we become conscious and awoken, then you have to ask the question, and the observer, the I am, the chooser, the soul, like what is real for me, and what do I want to create? Or do I just want to be an automaton and run these programs that have been, put into my subconscious? So it's an interesting process. It's a lot of fun. The more clarity and conscious you become of those beliefs, and you get to choose then.
My belief system whenever I was younger, like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, 17, 18, 19 years old, and you're looking around, I always knew that I wanted to make money, but I wanted to have fun doing it, and I wanted to have freedom while I was doing it. And luckily I stumbled into the right profession, and then hanging around with other chiropractors, and you learn more about their value systems. Whereas my flatmate Louise, like he did not grow up with money, and he had some quite negative beliefs surrounding money, and it's something that he's really had to work on over the last couple of years, because his mentality was, money's bad. Anyone that has a lot of money, it's because they're scamming people, it's because they think they're better than everyone else. And now he's come to the realization years later that it is an exchange, that it is energy, and that you are deserving of having money if you're providing a service and delivering value to people.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't know. It's not a zero sum game, but it's just the universe balances everything. And I mean, you can do it in a scammy way, but it won't last, or it'll be taken from you in another energy form. You know, everything balances out. You can't game the system. There's no get rich quick, no easy thing unless you're actually delivering value to people. I always love that. I think it was Zig Ziglar. He said, you can have anything in the world you want as long as you help other people get what they want.
Yes.
You know, and problems are profitable. So like that's what business is. It's the solving of a problem. It's the solving of someone else's lack and help them get what they want, and then it's just an exchange for that.
I had a mentor once that said you can only sell shit once.
Exactly.
If you want to deliver something of value over and over again, that's how you truly get financially rich. For instance, if I was able to make you €1 million, you'd probably be quite happy to give me 100 grand of it.
Totally.
And is that something that we could do only once, or do you think that transaction is something that we'd like to do again and again? You know, we'd be dear friends, wouldn't we? And you're quite happy to give me that that sum, that payment as a result of the value I'm giving to you, you know?
Completely. And it even goes, I mean, this is a predominantly chiropractic group audience that we're going to have here, I imagine. It's the same thing in chiropractic practice. I think you should make a lot of fucking money. You should. You're helping a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that do it in a way that's kind of, it's really just about the money. It's about closing people. It's about, you know, how many numbers can I get? How can I get from them? Let me sell my old year of care. And yeah, those things work for a while, but you're consistently needing to go hunt new blood. And what a lot of those people don't realize is that it has collateral damage out there in your brand. Like you're talking about, your uncle said you can sell shit once. It's the same thing, man. People are really, really savvy to being sold.
Yeah.
Really savvy in this day and age. So it's about, I mean, you got to really believe that what you've got is the best thing since sliced bread. And you've really got to care about people. You can game the system for a while, but the only sustainable way is that people feel connected and they feel cared for. And then they're happy to not only come to you, but bring you people because they feel it.
I love that. That's awesome. One thing I'll tie into that, because I think it's a good point. I really like the quote in chapter 3. No one is kept in poverty by a shortness in the supply of riches. There is more than enough for all. So to relate that back to chiropractic, we're surrounded by people that have a spine and a nervous system. So really out there, there's an abundance of patients. We do not really need to compete for patients at all.
No.
He's talking about money and resources in the book, but if we look at it from our perspective, there's so many patients out there, potential patients, you wouldn't be able to see you wouldn't have enough hours in the day. There's an abundance of them to go around. So I think if you go into the office with that mentality, it's not that there's a scarcity of them and you're having to beg and fight over chiropractors for them, right?
Yeah. And that's really cool because we'll get into that. I think it's chapter 14. I'm not sure, but you have to get out of the competitive plane and get into the creative plane, because this is really about creation. And it talks, I think, even in chapter 3 that, you know, if the physical there's enough physical matter and material to go around for everyone. And if there's not, then it will be brought forth from source. You know, like the physical material stuff, there's no shortage of it. There's plenty for everybody. And even if there weren't, then source would just make more if it's needed.
Right.
You know, so it is really, really important to come from that, not the competitive plane.
I love it.
So
yeah. We'll get into, in the next sessions, we'll get into more of the nuanced points, I'm sure, on laying the foundations in the first 3 chapters. Is there anything any other thoughts you have to close off with? Anything that comes?
Yeah, one thing I would do is, because we all come from different cultures, and I mean, I don't know, have you experienced even in Spain, like, you know, the word ambition or ambición? or ser ambicioso. It's like culturally, it's bad to be ambitious. That's seen as a negative. It's a pejorative. But in the US, ambitious is like the biggest compliment you could give someone. So how those cultures are different really inform our behaviors and how we act. So I would suggest that everyone under chapter 1, the right to be rich, I would say, I would do a stream of consciousness. Money is, okay? Rich people are. Wealth is. And these very short sentences, and just see what comes to mind and look at it and see if it's something that serves you and it's something that you want to keep believing. And if not, there are ways to change it. We can get into that later. But yeah, that would be a really, really good exercise to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Money is, wealth is, rich people are. Do the stream of consciousness and see what comes out.
All right, that's some action points. Yeah, I think I was kind of the outlier back home in Ireland, because the general culture there, I don't know where I got my consciousness from, but normally the normal person on the street, if they see you driving a BMW, let's say you pull up to your driving a nice new brand new BMW, most of them will be like, oh my God, like he really thinks he is something in his new fancy car, isn't it? Whereas I was always like, oh, Patrick got a new BMW. Good for Patrick. Patrick must have worked really hard to get that BMW. He must be providing. But I just, that was innately had that. But I understand that that's not the general culture. Whereas I think probably more like what you're saying in America, it would be, okay, go you, capitalism, yes, like go get the BMW, you know.
Well, America is an interesting place because, especially like I said, I grew up in the South, so it's a little different as well. We definitely have the tall poppy syndrome, you know, and like I think they call it the crab mentality of, you know, you can put crabs in a bucket and they won't get out because the other crabs will keep them down.
Right.
So yeah, Americans love to hate on people who are social climbing and when you're in the process of becoming, but when you arrive, then you're a success story, then they celebrate you, then you're a hero. So it's like, it's similar to plenty of other cultures, but yet there's just that promise of the American dream or the self-made man or becoming. When you actually get there, people don't hate on you. But in the process, they'll do whatever they can to keep you from getting there because, hey, just stay down here with us. Let's not do too much. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah. Yes. So interesting. Culture is huge. Some subconscious beliefs.
Yeah, Mark Hudson said the other day on the student chat, he said, the people you're looking after, they want to make a little bit more money than their friends. And that's it. They want to stay in that bracket. They just want to make a little bit more than they do and work slightly less hours. And that's it. They don't want to be the tall popper that gets caught, right?
Exactly. Cool. Anything else you want to add regarding these 3 chapters? Or?
No, that's pretty good. And the timing's pretty spot on. We're going to keep them short and sweet and full of value for the listeners. So thank you very much for your time. And I'll awesome. See you on the next call and we'll talk about the next 3 chapters.
Sounds good. Thanks, brother.
Cheers, bro.
All right. Ciao.